In a household, a son has just been born, and the mother tells Malaria to hold him. The girl, however, is afraid she might harm him, so the mother asks her to cradle him in her arms. This is because from that moment, he is the newest member of the family, and the mother wishes for Malaria to take good care of him. This tale follows a man who never gave up, and one day he was introduced as the winner of the Mangaka of the Year award. Kemishiro Akira was the author of Revenge Match. With over 50 million copies sold, fame eventually became part of his daily life. At the age of 18 he made his debut, and his first manga sold 1 million copies, even receiving a film adaptation. Being called the writer of the century along his path, the young man grew more arrogant toward his assistant, his friends, and even his girlfriend, who left him. Nevertheless, he never felt regret and always believed that his success came from being right. Of course, the writer was mistaken, but until that time, such a thought never entered his mind. That was until Kemishiro was diagnosed by a doctor with polycythemia, a condition where blood cells multiply and disrupt circulation. In other words, the writer now had a fatal blood disorder. Naturally, this was a dreadful day, and although recovery was possible, most patients survived only about 10 more years. So it was while on the road that the young man collapsed, since such a diagnosis was terrifying at the age of 29. After the appointment, the nurse explained the required procedures for the tests and told him to bring his family to the next visit. Kemishiro had already realized long ago, though he denied it, that he was completely alone. At that point, he had a mother, but she only cared about money, and everyone else who once cared had left. Ultimately, the writer understood that he had been wrong all along, with his ideals consumed by shallow success, leaving his life meaningless. During his mental breakdown, his phone rang, and when he answered, it was his mother saying she had an issue. As usual, the matter was money, and this time she requested $100,000 just to pay rent. Clenching his teeth with rage, the son told her he was at the hospital. When she asked why, Kemishiro replied, in tears, that he was ill and had only a few years left to live. As expected, his mother responded with apparent concern, so the terrified writer asked her to accompany him to the hospital. She agreed, but immediately afterward, she repeated her demand for rent money. Even in such a situation, the boy's mother worried more about money than her only family. Thus, Kemishiro stopped listening and released all his bottled-up anger at her while speeding down the road. Sadly, a family of innocent people was crossing, and to avoid hitting them, he made a reckless maneuver. In earlier times, things had been different, as his inspiration to become a writer came from the manga his mother once gave him. Reflecting on this memory, Kemishiro realized that having a peaceful place like that was all he had truly wanted. Ironically, he only rediscovered that feeling in death. But then, Kemishiro opened his eyes, bewildered, with no chance to rest in the afterlife. He remembered crashing into an electric pole and worried about whether the mother and child were safe. Just then, a system window appeared, declaring that his life had ended and asking him to select a new mother. Naturally, such a thing left the boy extremely perplexed, but a pseudo-panel appeared, showing 5 options for reincarnation. Among them, Ursula Stormheim promised the life of a noble. Meanwhile, Meltoria Veneris offered the life of a wealthy individual. At the same time, Fatima Idrisil promised immortality, and the protagonist started realizing he had to make a choice. As he adjusted, Kemishiro found it astonishing that reincarnation in another world truly existed, allowing him to avoid blaming his parents again and even letting him decide. Among the options, Kaji Gardenberg was a saintly aristocrat of the sword, and the boy realized each candidate came with immense advantages. Therefore, it became evident that choosing one of these mothers meant wealth and fame would be guaranteed from the beginning. Yet, an easy life with assured success was not what Kemishiro wanted. That is why the protagonist cried out, declaring he was finished with such games, because in the past, all fame had brought him was loneliness. Now that he is finally liberated from that past life, he does not wish to enter another one like it again. As if answering his plea directly, a candidate of commoner origins appears, offering him the life of a son to a magic shop owner. Confronted with this, the hero believes it might be the solution to his troubles, and the mother being offered is Diva Roland. ᴄᴏᴘᴘύʀɪ₦ᴛ cannot quite remember her description, yet she wears a gentle smile. To him, it feels as though she is welcoming him warmly, so ᴄᴏᴘᴘ chooses her as his mother. As his parents' relationship begins to grow, the boy reflects on how love takes shape, but above all, he feels grateful for being given a second chance at life. 7 years later, in the royal capital of Stormheim, inside the Rainford magic shop, a deal is struck, and the customer departs content. At that moment, Diva offers thanks along with her youngest child, Akira Rainford, who is now 7 years old. After the sale is finished, the mother thanks the boy and tells him he may go play while she tends to the rest. But the boy remembers his father's request to watch over her, so he insists on staying by her side. Because of this, Diva cannot contain her emotions and embraces Akira tightly, calling him adorable. Furthermore, since the child shows her such love, Diva promises to return it twofold. At present, the protagonist still retains memories of his earlier life, where he ruined everything chasing success. Yet, at that moment, Akira's father arrives and showers him with affection. That is why Akira decides he does not want to stand out and prefers to remain ordinary. Because even without striving for greatness, he already has a family that loves him. Ultimately, that is all he truly seeks. A small place in the world, the things one can never afford to lose. Shifting the subject, his father announces he brought a cake, which delights the boy, though he quickly remembers that sweets are forbidden. The reason for this lies with the obstacle to Akira's happiness, the maid. She is strict about not allowing sweets before dinner to avoid spoiling him, and since Akira has not yet attended his swordsmanship training that day, she drags him outside to practice. As the boy still has not mastered the basics, the maid calls him foolish, prompting Akira to shout that a 7-year-old cannot possibly be that strong. Even so, the girl persists and expresses disappointment that the boy also shows no gift for magic. Indeed, Aria is a hindrance in the seemingly perfect life of the ex-rider, but she is also the maid who has lived with them since birth. To this point, Akira knows nothing about her except that she is an elf of uncertain origin, highly skilled in everything she does, from sorcery to household work. Back in training, Aria orders Akira to get up and try again, warning him he will not receive cake if he fails. She continues to mistreat him, causing the boy to wonder why she despises him so much. Akira is nearly convinced that this woman harbors feelings for his father, Carl. From her perspective, his existence proves the bond between the man she admires and another woman. For this reason, the boy believes she becomes irritated each time she sees him, though he plans to change that once he grows older. Akira is resolved to reveal the elf's true character and, afterward, expel her from their home. Watching the protagonist's odd behavior, Aria strikes him again and declares that the next lesson will be about magic. She instructs Akira to inscribe beginner healing spells on 5 scrolls before the following morning. Since someone lacking mana must become accustomed to making scrolls, failure will mean he goes without food. Later, Akira lies down with the 5 blank scrolls. A scroll is a common item in this world, capable of storing magical energy when a sorcerer writes a spell upon it. Sadly, crafting one requires 2 hours, and completing all 5 will force him to stay awake the entire night. Yet, Akira refuses to let Aria get her way, for he will rely on his special ability. Even without talent in either swordsmanship or magic, the boy wished to aid his father and grew obsessed with scrolls. Until one day he uncovered a trick, since even the simplest spell usually demands 2 hours to fully inscribe. Yet Akira can bring about the effect of any magic he desires as long as he can sketch how it appears. Therefore, it becomes possible to achieve the same results as written scrolls simply by drawing instead of writing. So, even with little magical energy, he can complete all 5 scrolls within 10 minutes. And since he possesses effective magic through drawing, the protagonist believes he should be able to create even greater things. On another day, his parents are stunned to discover a slime, which the maid quickly eliminates. This incident occurred merely by chance, as Akira had unintentionally summoned a creature. Because he could perform such feats with scrolls, he chose to test it in an open area beforehand. Akira traced a blank magic circle on the lake's surface, then sketched a monster, which caused it to take form. Indeed, materialization cannot occur from a scroll, but it can from the magic circle he devised. It resembled summoning magic, which, though he did not completely grasp, was an astonishing technique. The ability to revolutionize through drawing had entered this world as a legacy of his past, and with such a rare talent, Akira suspects there must be a cost. Since he is already weary of carrying many talents, he chooses to conceal this ability. Later, the maid refuses to believe the scrolls were produced through trickery. She orders him to create one before her, while Carl asks whether Akira has neglected his assignment. But the truth was he had finished it, just too quickly. The previous night, the boy had gone to sleep early, so when Area questioned when he worked on it, he answered that he woke up early to complete it. Still, this explanation failed to convince her, for it was still morning, and she assumed Akira must have obtained pre-made scrolls. Area remarks that she does not blame him for lacking talent but cannot forgive dishonesty. She pressed him again, reminding the boy of the times he was pressured at work. Bitterly, Akira asked if he could not cut corners or ease his effort, realizing that his tormenting life might soon return. He wept and ran away, yelling that someone like Area should leave. Later, the protagonist visited the lake he always turned to when he was sad. After shouting, he felt slightly relieved, yet began pondering what excuse he could come up with. In any case, Akira realized it was the first time he had seen Area in such a light and thought he ought to return to apologize. At that very moment, however, the maid herself appeared, rescuing him from a deadly strike. After tumbling across the ground to escape, the boy was terrified, for Area had unfortunately been injured. The cause stood right before them, a colossal monster called the rogue basilisk dragon of the forest. To shield Akira from the next attack, the maid once more threw herself in front of him, urging him to flee. But misfortune struck as Area was seized by her hair, and she warned that the dragon required food. While she would act as the distraction, she ordered Akira to escape, though the boy could not comprehend this choice. To him, she was someone who despised him, but Area called such thoughts absurd. Since the protagonist was part of her family, protecting him was only natural. She urged him once more to run, and Akira realized he had been acting selfishly all along. Now the protagonist recalled his parents' disappointed expressions, helping him understand that Area was not like the editors from his former career. Surely she had been strict, but she had spent all this time guarding him. Back in the moment, Area shouted for Akira to run, yet the boy refused, leaving her to question his intentions. Then the hero declared he would not retreat, for he had resolved to defend his peaceful place, and now Area was part of it. With that, Akira drew a blank square on the river, baffling the maid. With the canvas prepared, the boy contemplated what he must create to overcome the threat. Confronted by a basilisk dragon, he decided to manifest a copy of it. From his completed sketch, an identical creature of equal size emerged, and Area quickly realized it was summoning magic. The summoned beast soon fulfilled its role, restraining the dragon. Because of his low magical reserves, the boy began to lose consciousness. However, he forced himself to remain standing, for compared to the torment of his prior life, this was far easier. Summoning all his willpower, Akira declared that this was the spirit of a professional and ordered his creation to tear the monster apart. Thus, the protagonist succeeded in defeating the threat and saving Area, though his mana was completely spent. When both the summoning and the beast disappeared, Area began rising from the river. As though nothing had happened, she mused that it was to be expected. With Carl's bloodline, the boy was bound to possess something extraordinary. But she had never imagined such a tremendous power hidden within him. Now it was Area's turn to rescue Akira, and carrying him in her arms, she fell into deep thought. The following day, Diva wept with relief, thanking God that her son had awakened. It was revealed that the boy had been in a coma for 3 days, the result of mana depletion caused by a drain bat, a creature that saps magic. Because of this, his mother had been immensely worried, but Diva said Carl would handle the matter. Akira, meanwhile, is relieved that Area is safe and suspects that the drain bat might actually be the maid concealing her true abilities. After Akira lost consciousness, Carl made him drink an elixir, which is considered an extremely rare item that only a few people ever obtain in their lifetime. On top of that, Diva had gone 3 days without sleeping, and since everyone helped, Area tells Akira he should feel grateful. In this situation, the boy feels guilty for troubling everyone with his selfishness, especially after promising to be a good son. At that point, Carl bursts in, panicked because he cannot find the drain bat. But once he sees that Akira has regained consciousness, the mood lifts, and reassured that the boy is fine, Carl's strength gives out. Having spent all that time searching without rest, he collapses on his feet. By nighttime, Akira reflects on MPO, which happens when tonal magic power reaches 0, resulting in death much like starvation. He feels thankful for being saved by the elixir and his mother. Yet, since he is still in great pain, Area shows up in her nightwear to help him sleep. After assessing the situation, the maid realizes the boy is experiencing problems with his magic flow. But when his face turns bright red, she says she will call Diva, which Akira desperately pleads her not to do. They get flustered, claiming they are not embarrassed, though the reason lies in her generous figure, leaving Area puzzled. Still, Akira does not want to burden his mother, who has already gone 3 days without sleep, so Area chooses to assist him herself. She explains that the elixir not only restores magic but also enlarges reserves, so she will help his body adjust. As she tends to him, Akira notices his heart racing unusually fast. He begins to see the maid differently, soothed by her warmth. Because of that, he apologizes and brings up the subject of her affection for his father. Akira admits he never wanted to acknowledge her feelings and even tried to embarrass her in front of Carl. So he sincerely apologizes and asks for forgiveness. Unexpectedly, however, Area replies that she never once considered becoming Carl's wife. Hearing this, Akira recalls all the times she seemed to give hints, but she keeps denying them, insisting it is all a misunderstanding. Instead of Carl, the maid confesses she was thinking of becoming Akira's wife. Since Carl is an extraordinary and highly respected mage, he would never choose a flawed woman. But if it is Akira, a rare summoner, then everyone in the world would want him. Not only that, but at just 7 years old, he succeeded in summoning a basilisk, something unheard of. Over time, Area cannot tell how strong Akira will become, nor if she can even help him, since it feels like a power granted by God. For this reason, she believes she is unworthy of raising someone destined for greatness. Once again, expectations are placed on the boy, and if things continue, Akira worries his secret will be exposed. The maid then asks why such power has been hidden. Summoners are exceedingly rare, treated as nobles by kings, and capable of attaining enormous fame and wealth. But such a position carries a heavy price, and Akira sees this as his chance to explain. With honesty, he says he does not want to be separated from his father and mother because of his powers, and his dream is to inherit the family shop when he grows up, not become a royal summoner. He shouts that he wants to take over the shop no matter what, begging the maid to keep his secret. However, she warns that she must speak to Carl, since Akira is only a child and his future must be decided by his parents. Moreover, as a maid, she cannot keep secrets. But if she becomes Akira's wife, then his wishes would take priority as her partner. Even though it is late to ask, Akira wonders what being his wife means, and Area explains it is like being a fated companion, someone who will remain by his side and protect him. Akira naturally interprets this as marriage, thinking she is trying to trick him into refusing. Yet, instead of backing down, the boy insists he will not be swayed, shouting that once he grows up, he will marry Area. This makes the elf flush deeply with embarrassment, and Akira assumes he has misunderstood again. But when she admits she does not mind, her mission is accomplished, and the two seal the promise with a pinky swear that they will marry when he becomes an adult. Until then, the secret will remain hidden from Carl and Diva. The next day, the maid decides to examine Akira's summoning ability. It is said that summoners always form contracts with their summons, so she wonders how Akira managed to call forth the basilisk. After all, a powerful monster would never obey someone at a low level. When Akira asks what a contract is, she scolds him for joking. But Akira had truly summoned without a contract and demonstrates the technique he drew by summoning a slime right in front of her. Realizing this, Area agrees to help him with his magic and asks him to summon a monster from a book. It is an advanced golem, notoriously difficult to summon because of its magical resistance. Even without a contract, it should have been impossible. But recalling his past days as a mangaka, Akira makes a drawing. He explains that if they sketch it first, the success rate is higher, then asks her to lend him magical energy. By imitating the same movements he used when summoning the basilisk, the advanced golem manifests, leaving Area utterly stunned at the sight and making her believe Akira is something beyond a genius, someone capable of defying the very laws of the world. After finishing the summoning, the boy cheerfully thanks her, but her serious expression makes him worry that his secret has been exposed. However, Area is simply too shocked to explain how much danger such power could bring. Therefore, until he fully grasps his abilities, she pleads with him not to reveal this to anyone. Akira agrees, feeling that everything turned out better than he had hoped. Yet things are not completely ideal, since training resumes. While enduring it, the boy asks why she is still making him do this when she already knows about his magical talent. He wonders why he must continue sword training, but Area reminds him of their promise to act as though nothing unusual happened. As a result, the harsh training goes on, and after taking many blows, Akira complains because it is much tougher than normal. He is glad his secret will remain safe but worries whether he will survive the training. Since he dislikes pain, the boy sketches an elixir onto a scroll, which, when used, restores HP and MP while increasing mana reserves. This potion is regarded as nearly mythical, as it not only restores completely but also expands reserves. An ordinary person would be extremely fortunate to encounter just one in a lifetime, yet Akira can create them endlessly. This even reminds him of the energy drinks he used to consume, but he grows curious about the expanded reserves since he hasn't noticed any changes. To test it, he strikes a tree trunk with his sword, but the result is pathetic. The trunk remains intact, suggesting sword skills are tied to magic. At that moment, someone arrives, asking if this weakling cannot even cut a trunk, and more importantly, questioning what he did with the scroll. Akira is startled, realizing he hadn't even noticed the girl approaching. But the bigger issue is that she seems to have witnessed his summoning. Smiling, the girl says it is the first time she has seen such a technique and asks if the little boy is a mage. From her manner, it appears she is an aristocrat, which makes the situation all the more troublesome. To cover himself, Akira claims he only used a basic recovery spell. Since she is also a child, he tells her not to call him little boy. Amused, the noble laughs at his way of speaking, which sounds like an old man, and with the subject diverted, Akira manages to continue the conversation. The boy asks her age, and she replies she is 7 years old. Realizing they are the same age, Akira scolds her for bothering commoners. However, this was a misunderstanding caused by her height, and she apologizes if she offended him. At this point, Akira realizes she is actually a well-mannered aristocrat, and he apologizes in turn for overreacting. Eventually, the two make amends, and the girl offers to help him with the firewood. But Akira insists that such work is not suitable for a noble, adding that this task is not mere labor but part of his sword training. The girl, however, remarks that this is precisely why she should participate, because a sword differs from an axe, with its center of gravity closer to the hilt. Unable to explain clearly, she asks Sakura to toss her the log, and though puzzled, he complies. With a swift step, the girl cuts the log cleanly in two in a motion so graceful it resembles a dance, one the boy cannot even follow. This sword dance is something even Area cannot perform, making Akira believe the girl is a true master. Despite being female, her skill leaves him in awe, which only heightens her interest in him. However, as she has not introduced herself yet, the noble reveals her name as Medas Blinstered, the son of Count Blinstered, Lord of Stormheim. Hearing this, Akira thinks it would be useful to have someone familiar with the city guide him, since he doesn't know the area well. But upon realizing the girl is actually a boy, Akira is shocked. He apologizes for mistaking Medas's gender, excusing it by saying he looked very cute, which makes Medas even more intrigued by him. Regardless, the Count's son asks Akira to introduce himself too. Akira replies that he is the son of the owner of the Rainford magic shop. Surprised that the son of a shopkeeper is practicing swordsmanship, Medas is impressed, while Akira is still bothered by having mistaken his gender. In response, Medas gives him a playful slap, saying not to worry, since he also misjudged Akira at first. Extending his hand, Medas declares Akira to be his first friend in the city. Akira shakes it, realizing nobles in this world are far more decent than he expected. Finally, Medas suggests they meet again the next day at the same time, offering to teach swordsmanship while Akira shares his knowledge about the city. A few days later, while bathing with the protagonist, Arya asks if what Diva said about him being unable to count to 100 is true. To her surprise, the boy replies that he no longer wants to be treated like a child. He then asks how much longer they will continue bathing together, and Arya answers that it is common practice to save firewood. Changing the subject, Arya mentions that Diva will be joining them soon, which makes Akira say he will leave. As Arya also stands up, the boy insists that he can wash himself. Shifting the topic again, the maid asks if Akira has been reading the book she gave him, which reminds the hero of a question he had wanted to ask. The book states that inorganic substances cannot be summoned, so Arya explains it is because contracts cannot be made with non-living things. However, Akira has already managed to summon an elixir, which makes this power even more problematic if discovered. Regardless, Arya asks whether the book has been useful, and he answers that it has since it contains detailed information about many monsters to summon. Still, Arya reminds him that she gave the book to explore his abilities together, not for him to summon alone, since attempting a high-level summoning without enough mana could result in death. For that reason, she asks him to promise not to summon unless he has the magic of a legendary hero, which leaves him puzzled. It is said that the goddess created a human for war with the finest magic and swordsmanship, known as the god of war. This individual has red eyes, the mark of the night goddess, and is regarded as the strongest human alive. Since Akira is also a boy, Arya asks if he wishes to become someone like that, but he reaffirms his dream of succeeding the magic shop as its second generation. At that moment his mother arrives, apologizing for being late, which leaves him embarrassed. She also asks whether he has learned to count to 100 yet, prompting him to run off to get dressed first. Soon afterward, his father returns home, and after apologizing to Diva for leaving everything to her, she notices that something went wrong at the guild. Carl then reveals that the evil cult has begun kidnapping children. Though still speculation, earlier a man was caught kidnapping a child while bearing the cult's emblem. Furthermore, there are rumors that the cult uses children as sacrifices, leading to tightened city security. As a precaution, Carl instructs Akira not to go to isolated areas. Later, the boy continues his training with Medas, but as usual, he is defeated. He gives up, knowing he cannot land a single hit on Medas, so the noble suggests they take a stroll around the city. Akira refuses, asking if Medas is unaware of the cult's actions. Hearing this, Akira explains everything, which shocks the noble, and thus Akira decides they should head home. Medas, however, says he does not fear such people, but Akira admits that he does, since he is just a commoner and does not learn swordsmanship to take such risks. In response, the noble seriously questions whether Akira truly means that. He explains that his teacher said strong individuals bear great responsibilities. If Akira is not prepared to shoulder responsibility for others, then there is no reason for him to learn swordsmanship. The boy, recalling his past, compares Medas' teacher to the fools from his previous job. He then asks Medas if he understands what happens when talented people are wasted this way, because in such cases everything is for nothing. Suddenly, the admiration fades, and Medas decides to return home first, leaving Akira to realize he has upset him. The boy acknowledges he was too harsh toward a child, but at the same time, matters begin to make more sense. Then a sweet scent fills the air, bringing with it a strange drowsiness. The protagonist remembers the warning not to visit isolated places and to practice swordsmanship closer to home. Nevertheless, after a while, he regains consciousness only to find himself and Medas locked in a cell as prisoners. Noticing the crying children behind the iron bars, Akira recalls that the evil cult sacrifices children. That is when he realizes, to his misfortune, that they have been kidnapped by the cult. Meanwhile, Midai slowly awakens and asks why Akira is in his bed, but quickly realizes they are not at home and asks where they are and who the children are. In response, Akira tells him to keep his voice down and explains that they were most likely kidnapped by the cult. If this is indeed the cult's hideout, Akira wonders whether he should summon a golem, but there is the risk of being buried alive, and he had promised not to use his powers. Of course, he wants to keep his abilities hidden, but since this is a life-or-death situation, he considers disguising it as a summoning spell. Now understanding the situation, Midai unexpectedly declares that they will destroy the place and save the children. Akira warns him that this is reality and that their weapons have been confiscated. However, Midai does not require a sword to invoke his blazing pain flame magic. To Akira's surprise, the boy has mastered not only swordsmanship but also magic. At that moment, Midai assures Akira not to worry, because he will protect him. Displaying glowing red eyes, the noble proclaims that he will teach Akira about the responsibility of the strong. This reminds Akira of what Arya had said about humans with red eyes. He had not expected Midai to possibly be one of the legendary heroes. Possessing mastery in both swords and magic along with red eyes, such a being is known as the god of war or a hero. Midai's left eye shines with a bright red glow, leaving no doubt about his power. This turns into an unforeseen trump card, and Akira thinks he might need to call forth the golem. With someone this strong by their side, relying on Midai could give them a chance to escape. Using his flame magic, Midai melts the bars as if they were candles, and Akira praises him, admitting he's no ordinary noble. The admiration goes both ways, as Midai assures him that he will protect him. Afterward, they get ready to flee and rescue the other captives. But as they step out, two cultists appear, questioning how the children managed to break free. In response, Midai orders Akira to stay behind him, while the cultists prepare a powerful joint fire spell. Yet Midai counters with a fiery pillar of the same element, catching them off guard. The noble then charges forward, leaping ahead, showing that besides being a skilled mage, he's also astonishingly quick. At the last instant, the enemies realize the source of his red eyes, but it's already too late. Naturally, the protagonist is shocked by such overwhelming strength, achieved without even using a weapon, and it becomes clear they now have a real chance to escape. Because of this, Akira remarks that Midai's confidence makes sense, and the noble tells him to keep moving, which Akira accepts. Still, while Akira urges that they rush toward the exit, Midai insists on defeating the leader instead, sparking a disagreement. Meanwhile, at the Rainford household, Akira's mother is in despair, and Arya tries to comfort her, saying that a search team is already looking for him. Even so, Deva becomes even more anguished, since if the guards are involved, then the matter must be grave. With tears, she asks what will happen if her son has indeed been captured, or worse, already lost, because if something happens to Akira, she won't be able to continue living. Arya reassures her, insisting everything will be fine and asking her to have faith in Akira, since he's wiser than she imagines. To the maid, there's no doubt that the boy will return unharmed. Back inside the hideout, Midai questions whether Akira really meant they would just escape, but Akira argues that rushing to fight the leader would be reckless, especially when they don't even know the structure of the place. He acknowledges Midai's strength, but points out they are completely blind. Thus, charging in would be too risky, and the safest choice is to escape first and call for reinforcements. In return, Midai turns serious and asks if Akira truly believes that, because while the two of them may survive, the captured children won't. By the time help arrives, the cultists will have erased all evidence rather than leaving the children behind. Midai presses him one last time if he truly intends to flee. In his thoughts, Akira realizes he can't fully deny Midai's reasoning. In fact, he even agrees, because with his drawings and Midai's strength, they might stand a chance, which makes Midai glad. Still, Akira warns that if they challenge the cult and fail, not only will the captured children perish, but so will the two of them. Deeper in the hideout, the cultists conduct a ritual, commenting on how pure the children's souls are. The one who seems to be the leader cruelly remarks how thrilling it is to see the light of life, meant to last for decades, consumed in such a way, and every time she witnesses it, it makes her shiver with delight. Caught in their opposing views, Midai's declares that he doesn't mind sacrificing his own life for his convictions, but admits Akira has a point. Still, unwilling to place others at risk, Midai's tells Akira to escape while he takes on the cult alone, leaving Akira distraught. With no choice, the hero follows his companion until they reach the cult's altar, where they notice an exit. It appears they are inside a limestone cavern on the northern coast, not far from the city. Yet the atmosphere feels sinister because of the altar and statue. Suddenly, Midai's forces Akira's head down as a group of cultists passes by, carrying children. Witnessing this, the hero thinks they must hurry, but when he looks at Midai's, the noble is barely holding back his fury. That's when Midai's shouts at the evildoers to halt and repent before the goddess, so she won't have to pass judgment now. Naturally, the hero panics, realizing that provoking them will only worsen things, and to make matters worse, the leader from before appears behind them. With a mocking tone, she asks why the little kittens look so serious. But Midai's reacts instantly with a spell already prepared, unleashing a blast of fire that pushes them back. It's a flame spell that requires no chant, sparking the cultist leader's curiosity. After the blast, Midai's lifts Akira into his arms, and while the flustered boy protests, Midai's tells him to focus on protecting the children while he handles the fight. When cultists try to stop the captives, the noble defeats them without effort. Moreover, he seizes a sword, unleashing his aura and exposing his crimson eyes to the cultist leader. This makes it obvious to all that he isn't just an ordinary fighter, but a hero favored by the goddess. Still, knowing this does nothing for the cultists as they are swiftly cut down. Realizing they stand no chance, the cultists summon Karamisama. At that moment, Midai's understands that the girl is indeed the leader and challenges her to a duel. Akira yells for the noble to reconsider, arguing that they could just escape through the exit. But Midai's firmly declares that he will never retreat from an enemy, and that he will fight to prove that just beliefs will always triumph. In response to his inspiring words, Karamisama bursts into laughter, claiming she is touched by such pure ideals. She demands they show her more of this so-called justice and conjures an enormous magic circle, leaving both boys shocked and Midai's horrified. Because the noble not only ignored his companion's warning but also followed his squire's code of justice, she states that this makes him the perfect offering for that individual. Thus, Karamisama proclaims that she will answer with her full power to crush that sense of morality. To counter both blades and sorcery, she summons the dreaded hero slayer, an advanced golem, displaying her own summoning skills as well.